Thank you, Daniel. So I'm very glad to be here to share my current research. I got several research fields such as the special economic zones in sub-Saharan areas and worldwide. And based on that, I finished my PhD thesis. Then I focus more on the informal economy sector. The reason is very simple because I got my major both in economics and politics. But the thing is, when you are collecting data, you set your model, you try to analyze something in laboratory, you'll find if you went to the field and have a long field experience, you will find the data never lie. But the thing is that some stories behind the data cannot be told if you just read the data or deal with the data. So that is why I focus more on the field work recent years. In my past 12 years, I spent at least 5 to 6 years in different countries to do a lot of surveys and reviews. So I think what I need to do is to share some experience, but with somehow professional background as an economist to tell some stories. So that is my purpose to share my recent. I promise this is the first one I share this story. So last time, should be 2 months ago when I was in South Africa, I shared another one about the special economic loans. So the reason why I choose these two groups is that when we're talking about the urban or city development, some people undertake a huge burden about their lives to survive in the city. But the thing is, some groups can be seen everywhere, but some groups are not. So this time I took two groups which can be seen everywhere, no matter in Eastern or the North or Western Africa. But when we come to the Southern Africa, it can be seen everywhere because when we, for example, if we went to Cape Town or Joburg, the road is not uneven, it's just like with different hills, these kind of things. And the traffic code is totally different in different countries. So these two groups can be mainly seen in Eastern Africa. For example, Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania. So the first group is the engine, which we call the boda-boda. Okay, so they call boda-boda in Uganda and in Tanzania. Why we call this is that because the 1917s, maybe if I were right, there is a border between Kenya and Uganda, and people used to use bicycles, the second-hand bicycles, to carry people, to carry goods across borders. So they call it boda-boda. So this is actually from English, border, not from the local language. So we call it boda-boda. And then since 1990s, last century, and a lot of motorbike from the eastern of Africa, Asia, for example, Japan or China or India, came from there to the African countries. See, they began to substitute the previous bicycles into boda-bodas, the motorbikes. So especially in the cities, or Dar es Salaam, or Arusha, you can see the boda-boda everywhere. And also in Kigali, in Kampala as well. So when we're talking about the boda-bodas, actually, I only met twice the boda-boda drivers were female. So from my own database, 98% of this group were taken by male. And at least 70% of this group only finish their primary education. But you can see some got their bachelor degree and still decided to join this industry. So when we're talking about this, you can see it's about masculinity, like speed, the risk, modernity, mobility. You can see it everywhere. So if you just walk around or lingering around the corner of the different cities there, you say, okay, this means hope, but actually not. It's just like a black hole to trap them inside this industry. They cannot get out. So I will discuss this later. So we call this the illusion of changing of future. And then we're talking about the ladies who carry goods or things on the head carrying ladies. It's about the balance, resilience, burden, space. Why? And I will share another case later. Because in several countries' city authority policies, these ladies are forbidden to get into certain areas, especially the city center or the CBD areas, to sell goods. So they quite often expelled. So they need to seek for some opportunities to sell goods instantly and immediately, and they escape or hide. So that should be another hidden game or strategy for their survivals. So some people, urban development scientists, when they get to Africa, the first impression they got is that this city is like a chaos. It's quite chaotic, but I should say it's not a chaos. So it's just a system in different countries, especially in developed countries with their own logic. They need to survive, but how can they survive without the government, the policymakers' support? That should be a key point. So why I use the Sisyphus task as the metaphor is quite simple. You can see in Africa, people struggle to live and they exert every single effort to survive. But the thing is, you live very hard and you try to live better, just like you pushing up a boulder to the top of the hill, but every time the boulder just rock down again and again. So no matter what you do, it's just like the Sisyphus task from the ancient Greek methodology, the myth. So from macro view, it's just like an unending circle of intense labor with no structural place to upward mobility. So, but for the micro view, Laura's from the US, maybe you know there is a very famous Broadway show called Next to Normal. It has won a lot of prizes. So we introduced that name to almost normal. So the almost normal means that seems that people live their lives, but they have no stability or the support from the government or public policymakers. So that should be a huge problem. So if we try to see the data later, we'll find that at least 60% to 80% of the whole Africa population are doing the informal economy works or jobs. But they only create less than 30% GDP for the whole continent. That should be a point to discuss. So how is this state of crisis not an autonomy? So start with, what is this one? So can I click this or start with? Okay, no.
Can you slide it out of the way?
Okay, that's fine. So I just try to draw some data as an economist, from the informal economy in different countries. So which I have spent at least half a year in each country, which means I am more familiar with these countries. You can see the informal economy sector things from 30% to the highest 85% or 91%. So if we see more details from this table, we can see that in Rwanda, Uganda, and Tanzania, most of this population was in the agriculture sector. And the thing is that the data can tell that if more population were in this sector, agriculture, which means the government and the policymakers, no matter they ignore intentionally or unconsciously, they didn't focus too much on the agriculture sector or this industry's transformation and the people who is doing or who making money in this industry. And when we come to the South Africa, you can see the services. So that should be different, but still again, the informal economy sectors are the main industry in different countries, especially in the sub-Saharan areas. And another data set is that about 10 to 12 million young enter Africa workforce, but only 3 million formal jobs are created. So if we see another data, you can find that we sum up all the sectors together, we are over 100%. Do you know why? Because maybe one person doing 2 or 3 jobs simultaneously. At the daytime, they are the boda-boda drivers, but when it comes to the night, they're just waiters or these kind of things. So the thing is that we call that the misaligned integration, which means the young people are absorbed into the economies to subsist rather than into its core to drive growth and build careers. So then we are talking about the what is informal economy. So in 1970s, a professor called Case Hart, I can't remember the name for that, saying that you're doing the job, but you don't have the, you can see your pathways, you don't have the stable work, and you cannot have the, you don't have the insurance, these kind of things, and or maybe you don't have the contract. You only make your own life, and there's no assistance from others. So in different countries, we call that informal economy. Even in China, when in the COVID, we can see a lot of street vendors to sell things. But the thing, you know that because policies in China is that you cannot be a street vendor unless you have the permit, right? And the thing is that the government support people to do the street vendor jobs during the COVID to make more money. So I should say the policy about the informal economy sector is quite flexible, especially in developing countries. But being inflexible doesn't mean that we didn't see them. So in some countries I visited is that the government did nothing to this group. They just leave them there and, okay, you make your own life. So that should be a huge gap. So what can we do about this? And from this chart, from this slide, we can see that for the agricultures, the reality is that this sector absorbs 1/3 to 70% of the young employment. Still the agriculture. While for the manufacturing, we call that the missing middle. For example, the week before, I joined another forum in China talking about the textile industry. And they found that, for example, in Tanzania, one of the largest textile market called Kariako, they sell different styles of clothes, the fashion shoes, those kind of things. But the thing is that for the local, there is no training school or training program to teach local people how to do the job relating to textile industry. For example, embroidery or coloring, this kind of things. Most of these clothes and garments can only be imported from China or India. So that should be a huge problem, is that we found that no matter the university teach you about like a social science or arts or sociology, this skill cannot tell you how to find a job. So that should be the one of the key problems. So that's what we're talking about this one, education. So when we're talking this, we found it's just like a unskilling and reskilling process. Unskilling means you cannot get or make your own life from what you've learned, but you need to learn something new to survive. For example, another example is that one of my friends owns several hotels in Dar es Salaam, and at least half of his receptionists have a bachelor degree. When I did my survey, I felt, wow, you've got a bachelor degree, but why you look for a better job? And she replied, it's simple and easy. Because what I've learned cannot support my life. And that should be the dilemma about the education. So we call this unlearning, relearning, upskilling, and reskilling process. For example, when I interview a boda-boda driver, I said, okay, so if you find this place or the location is difficult to find or locate, why don't you use Google? Maybe 10 years ago. And his reply is very interesting. He said, first, I cannot buy the data. I can only use 2G, not 3G. When I use 3G, I need to make a call, but I need to switch the data bundle off immediately. Try to spend more money about that. Second is that the Google Map update process is quite slow. And I experienced that when I found a shop in Kampala. And when I arrived there and asked the surrounding people, I said, okay, this shop used to be here, but that's 10 years ago. Which means I look for a wrong place, but actually this place exists in the system. And the third is that they rely more on their muscle memories because they are more familiar about their city than the not updated apps. So that should be what they are doing. And all those photos I took by myself in different countries. And you can find something interesting. For example, if Mussolini or Kagame are doing their election round, so some of the boda-boda drivers will wear the helmet or armor, printing the logos about that party to propagandize their election process. And also, some of the boda-boda drivers will stick their, maybe Bible books or the Bible pages on the wheels or this kind of things. So the first case should be the driver boss. We found that riding a boda-boda is not just like making a work or making a life. It's another thing about the self-identity. They try to say, okay, I'm the boss. Because half of these people who are interviewed as boda-boda drivers came from the remote area or the village or the county or towns. And they told me that in their circle, if I bought boda-boda, they will call me boss instead of my name or instead of another name like Johnson's or maybe Thomas Song. I'm what I am. I'm the boss. So the title is just like a self-identity. They get their own social status, and it's not just a job description. It's comfort status to and respect back in their own home village. So this is first why they choose this, and second that when we are looking at this, I just make a pie chart to see. Most of the people who don't know this industry will say, okay, you buy the boda and then you make money. But the thing is that they rent the boda instead of buying because they cannot afford, or even they cannot afford the second-hand motorbike. So they can earn about 25,000 Tanzania shillings. So shillings to RMB currency rate is 1 RMB for 380 shillings, and 1 RMB and 1 pound equals to 9.5 pounds. So if you time this, like that, which means they can only earn 7.5 pounds every day. And no more than 250 pounds per month. So 40% they will pay for their bike lease or rent, and the home pay 20%, and then the fuel 25%, and this one, the black hole. Why they call this black hole? Because there's the cost, maintenance, depreciation, and the bribes. The bribery, especially from the if you're recording, can I say this? From some departments or some people, should be super high with different reasons. For example, okay, your motorbike doesn't look well maintained, or you just break your traffic codes, these kind of things. So, which means you only have no more than half, or only 20% for your own home. And long time, they need to drive at least 12 to 15 hours per day to make this money. Because the long-term sitting on the bike, riding on the bike, they got a lot of problems. For example, they got the road trauma, or maybe they swine disease, spinal disease. This should be super depreciated. And we are looking at the data about the traffic accidents which occurs on this group. Only in Dar es Salaam, one area, there are more than 1,000. And after that, after the accident, they cannot afford the medication fee. What they do, they just wait or take some pills, and that's it. So the pie chart of poverty, we call this. And for their survival or living or working strategy, for example, this is what they do. They have WhatsApp groups and to share information instantly to say, okay, where is the traffic police and where is the accident, you can avoid that. And also, so the president's car will come to which road, and the road will be blocked. And this should be one thing. Another thing is that they have some groups. Some of the boda-boda drivers, they are relatives or close friends or buddies, they have groups. And they have a shared account. They put some money into the account regularly, maybe per month, to try to deal with some unpredicted affairs or issues. If this kind of thing need money, for example, if your daughter need to pay her tuition fee, but you don't have the money, you can apply for the money from that public account among a certain group of people. So that's what they do. So we call that grassroots governance on two wheels. That should be one group. But there are a lot of stories behind. I can tell if you are interested maybe next time. And another case is that they had carrying ladies, and these photos of us taken in different places. Comparing to the previous group about boda-boda, you will see their survival strategy is much more silent, flexible, and resilient. So when I was in Kampala, the city area, I live in the central area of the Kampala city, but the things you rarely see these ladies because they will be expelled if they sell things inside within that area. So the thing is that KCCA is the department who is taking full charge of the city administration. So the full name is Kampala Capital City Austerity. Okay, so if you are Chinese, you will know that 城管 actually is the same meaning. So Professor Liu should be more familiar with concept. And the thing is that when we are looking at what they sell, I would say depending on the area, depending on the season, depending on what their suppliers offer them to sell. For example, if you are going to the local busy streets, they will sell bread, milk, or some bananas or mangoes as fruits. But when you go to the area with different embassies, you will see that maybe phone chargers, power bank. So they had their own strategies, and they live quite often in the remote area or far from the city center. So they can take boda-boda or minibus as their shuttle. And then when they meet the CAAC, I talk this first, they had their own coding system in local language. So if we translate into English, it's like the dangerous man is coming, or the killer is coming, which means the KAAC people is coming to expel them. And also, when I interview them, you will see that. If you see this, see, none of these ladies take the baskets off their heads to take a photo. Do you know why? Because it's super heavy, at least 10 kilo to 20 kilos on their heads. And I say, okay, I pay 2,000 to you. 2,000 shillings in Kampala. It costs only maybe 2 to 4 RMB. So they said, okay, you know how hard I will take this off my head and then take it back, and I just take it. Damn, super heavy. So I quite understand that, and you can say at least 10 to 20 large mangoes on one head. You can imagine that. So every time if you negotiate with them price, or you found if a price is lower than a certain price level, for example, if you say, okay, I will pay you 400 shilling for one mango, they will say no, because their bottom line should be 500. And if the price you negotiate is on this price, they refuse to sell you. That happens. Because the thing is that people think, okay, I give you money, you will sell me anything I want. That thing is not happen sometimes, because for them, the label, we call it the somatic economics. For them, it seems that if I do this, they taking off and taking back, and this price is too low, I can accept that, and I can refuse it. So the logic is that the physical economic cost of lowering a 13 kgs basket from her head and raising the gain is greater than the tiny profit from 200 shilling transaction. So simple and easy. And if we compare these two cases, because of the time limit, you can see it's actually, we call the fragile equilibrium, but not a chaos. So you can see for the men, boda-boda drivers, it's more about kind of offense, mobility, speed, risk, while the women focus more on the defense, the patience, networks, resilience. So one is just noisy and the boda-boda driving every day, every corner. And another is that we just walk, and when we see the KUC or some people from the certain department, we hide ourselves. We hide at the shoppers or different places. And about that, one is the machine and one is body and the space. So the thing is that almost normal is the operating system that emerges when crises become routine. So it's quite a sophisticated, self-regulating system. They live quite often by the unwritten rules instead of the public policies. So how about these rules regulated? Each person, each person, each certain group have their own rules or stories. You cannot judge them by a simple paper-making policies. Instead of you must go there to see their own lives. For me, when I want to investigate this data or do my own research, I pretend to be a hotel manager for 3 months in my friend's hotel. And that hotel not only for Chinese people, but for locals, for overseas guests. So I see a lot of details that you cannot read from any kind of the book. So for me, although I'm doing economics, but I think fieldwork should be a super strong way to discuss something or develop something or discover something or explore your own interest, or your own research interests. So, come back again about the stone we'll always work back down is that if the government only still focuses on the formal works or formal sectors, but focus less on the formal economy sectors, and this stone will just always work back down. And a lot of studies up till now has already give some solution. I should say that this infographic was done by Google. The latest Gemini 3, the notebook LM. I just give them my materials and my research, and they just draw this. This one. It's quite good. Yes. So it's quite still this is like a paperwork, but at least if we do a lot of field work, we have the chance to tell people what they are and how they live, instead of giving more paperwork policies or political frameworks. So that is why our department or our group focus on the long-term fieldwork studies and the professional measure training. So life is in the almost normal for both of us and for the people who live around the world who has better expectation for the future. Thank you so much. So I should say it's not purely academic sharing. It's just about my fieldwork thoughts in the past several years. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, fantastic presentation.
Thank you.